Welcome to Volume 11 RockTalk Podcast, brought to you by Volume 11 Music. Your hosts, Rich Hoffa, Rik Lawhorne, and Mark Dunn. RockTalk, Volume 11 Music.
Hey, how's it going? This is RockTalk at Volume 11 Music in Fredericksburg, Virginia. My name is Rich.
Rik Lawhorne.
Mark Dunn.
All right, so we hope you enjoy all the videos that we're putting out. We're trying to reach 1,500 subscribers, so please hit that subscribe button, like the video, share it, and hey, leave some comments. Like reading your comments, especially the most famous comment right now is the misspelling on the short videos. So you know that, yes, we know that there's misspelling. We're well aware of it. It's because the program I use transposes the wording on there, and there's no way for me to correct it. So I think it's funny if stuff gets
you can make a game out of it. You know, like how many
this guy is not all fancy. It's just hooked on phonics.
Right.
right.
I know. I seen it. I tried to fix it. I can't. We know. Haha. It's funny. We got it. So.
I don't spell my last name D-O-N-E.
D-O-N-E. Yep.
That's it. So we just wrapped up, last week talking about great bass players, really good conversation. And so this week we're going to talk about just really good, tight rhythm sections. No leads, just how guitar players, bass players, and drummers, especially if you've got a rhythm guitar player section, and how they work together and what we think of just really, really good, rhythm sections, especially where the guitar players are just playing off of each other, not playing the same stuff. It's different parts and things like that. So I'll let you guys start it off.
All right, well, I'll throw my hat into the arena here. I'm going to go back. Of course, we talk about it all the time. Still one of my favorite bands, Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
John Bonham on the drums. John Paul Jones.
Should probably
we didn't. Yeah. We ran out of time. We are on time constraints. So let's bring John Paul. We're going to pull him in. One of the greats, obviously. And when you hear all those great Zeppelin albums, the way the drums and the bass lock in for Jimmy Page to do his magic over top of it, and then Robert Plant to, of course, deliver those amazing vocals on so many different nuances, bluesy things, the Celtic-y things, the Middle Eastern kind of things, the hard driving rock, communication breakdown. For me, I mean, there's all kinds of bands we could talk about, but I'm going to definitely put Zeppelin as one of my favorites as far as the way that rhythm section is working within the parameters of a rock style song.
So.
Puritan.
Rush, obviously,
sure.
Yep.
I mean, and it's not like we're looking for a deep pocket groove with them, but they were a collective. Actually, the whole band was. But when you think about, if you could buy a rhythm section and you were going to play rock, that would cover all the bases.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some of the things. And it's not like either of them. Here's my point. Neither of them laid back, and I don't mean like pushing forward in tempo or feel. There was nothing that they wouldn't do.
Right.
So when you think about the complexity of some of their things without being detrimental to the overall.
Right.
If you take a critical ear and listen to even their hits, there's things that they would do different in a measure, whereas so many other songs you hear, first verse, same as the second verse.
Yeah.
No.
They changed it up. I have noticed that in the past.
And it's intricate and it's spot on and it sounds good, and it's not like contrived.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's a flagship.
And Geddy gets bonus points for being able to sing at the same time
on lyrics that he wrote.
On the lyrics that the drummer wrote. I mean, who else does that? They got to get some
sing
extra
this.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So yeah, no doubt. I mean, Lee and Peart. It is Peart, by the way.
Yeah,
I remember watching an interview with him years ago, and people always say my name's Neil Peart. Neil Peart. It's not Peart. It's Peart. Neil Peart. He seemed really irritated about
That's
that.
because he didn't want to be named after a shampoo. He got no conditioner in his hair.
That's right. Mark will be performing at Yuck Yucks Comedy Club this week. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so I'll throw one in there. Black Sabbath.
Okay.
I mean, Bill Ward,
Butler.
Geezer. Jesus, I mean,
very unique sounding for the early 70s.
Unique.
Nobody sounded like that.
Great rhythm section. Really full. I mean, they had such a full sound. especially a 3-piece.
Yeah, listen to Children of the Grave.
Jeez.
Right.
That's just driving.
Yeah.
And they're there. That's probably the epitome of a troglodyte metal riff.
Right.
Right.
It's crushing, you know.
And probably one of the first, and whatever you want to throw in on this, but rock bands, hard rock, metal, that they got things tuned down. There's like a low drop D, then going down to a half step, so it's like a low C sharp. I think I don't think anybody else was doing that back in that era that I'm aware of. I could be wrong,
he was doing that because of the fingers.
yeah, Tony Iommi, who had an
Iommi
issue
was doing that,
with his hands.
Make
and
make it a little lighter.
the string, right.
Yeah.
But it gave the sound this heavy thunderstorm, you know.
Well, that and the
crazy
the
and frantic,
SG
you know.
through the Marshalls on 10.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
throw that into the rhythm section too, because he's riffing like crazy, right?
I mean, it's and the tones on those records are.
In early days, he played through Orange.
That's right. I was gonna say there was a lot of orange amps on
Yeah.
the early records.
on the first one, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found I wasn't a fan when I was a kid. I was never a hater, but I've gone back and I've had to learn some material, and I'm like going, wow, and I hear direct, not just influences, but I hear direct rip-offs.
Yes.
That people quote Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? They need to be getting a check.
Right.
You know? So it's that rhythm section was definitely something to behold.
And when you analyze different types of harder edge rock, whether it be metal, thrash, grunge, so many of the bands out there have things that sound at times a little bit Sabbathy.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's Alice in Chains, Soundgarden,
100%.
Metallica.
Yeah.
You know, you hear that low. Y'all know what I'm talking about. That really thugging.
And also licks. I mean, we're talking about rhythm sections, but Metallica on freaking For Whom the Bell Tolls is the same lick as the end of Fairies Wear Boots.
That's right. Yes, it is.
What? You
know? Yeah. And like I said, once that rhythm section, kicks in, drums and bass, just thunder and lightning.
They're incredible.
And I like it, baby.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible
Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw out AC/DC too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Very simple. I mean, there's always been that one.
Yeah.
Well, that guy can't play as complicated as blah, blah, blah. We don't care.
No.
If I'm in a band, I want Phil Rudd
right.
beating that drum and getting people dancing.
2 and 4.
So Phil Rudd on the drums, and then Malcolm's awesome, simple but effective. He's not using a bunch of jazz fusion chords. He's just playing loud rock and roll, and it's awesome.
It doesn't have to be technical to be great.
Absolutely, especially in rock and roll.
Some of the best songs are relatively simple.
From a rock perspective, absolutely. And Cliff Williams, again, not a fancy bass player by any stretch of the imagination, but just laying down the solidness. So that combination, Phil Rudd on the drums, Cliff Williams on the bass, Malcolm, and then that allows Angus to do his thing over top of it. And
It's so funny live. They just stood there.
Right.
Yeah. It's like your Malcolm, Phil,
Cliff.
And then they would go to the mic and then come back.
Yeah,
right.
They stayed back there because of course,
choreographed.
When you got Angus running all over the place, you got to stay out of his way, or you're going to get knocked.
Yeah, that's probably why they did that.
Oh,
they
sure.
knew, it'd be like a bowling ball knocking over bowling pins. With Angus.
You got especially Angus in his younger days. Yeah. He's still moving around
for his age.
For his age.
70 now. It's still.
But gosh, man, I mean, he's all over the place and spinning around on his back and Chuck Berrying across the stage and all the other stuff, the strip tease.
I mean, he must have had like energy drinks before energy drinks were a thing.
Coffee
and cigarettes. Yeah. That's the Angus.
I think I read somewhere
diet.
once that like his guitars and they would actually rot out from so much sweat.
Sweat, yeah, I can believe it.
Yeah, I think his sweats.
Man, his way he's running around, oh my gosh, is insane.
But really, one of the definitely great hard driving rock and roll rhythm sections.
Oh yeah,
for sure. That particular
that's
band.
For sure.
Yeah, AC/DC.
And I mean, I'm trying to I'm going into the headier side of things. Now, I know Simon Phillips played on a lot of the Jeff Beck stuff, but I don't know who the bass player was. But some of those albums, like
Beck.
Oh yeah,
Crazy.
Wired and
Crazy
Blow by
stuff.
Blow.
Oh yeah. Oh, and then Terry Bozzio on Guitar Shop, but that was Tony Hymas on keys. They didn't even have a bass.
They didn't. No, you're right.
Yeah.
He was doing a lot of, I guess, left synth kind of low end stuff there.
And Chris Layton and Tommy Shannon.
The Stevie.
Killer rhythm section.
Yeah.
And I would say this is going to be sacrilegious. and I know this is going to piss some people off.
Are we
because
hate mail worked it.
Because they're going to, yeah, right.
Yeah, we're gonna hate
Even
mail
if you
segment.
don't like the video, like the video. But I thought that, and they're legendary and they're great, so I'm not saying that they weren't great, but I thought when Hendrix got Buddy Miles and Billy Cox, that was the Jimi Hendrix. And not to disrespect Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding, but they got a job because they were needed right then.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And when you listen to Band of Gypsies, it's a whole different thing.
Totally.
A whole different thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and had that Band of Gypsies never been a thing, we obviously wouldn't be having this conversation, but, Mitch Mitchell was a jazz drummer.
Yeah.
And Noel Redding was a guitar player.
They switched over.
Yeah,
to
just for the because they needed a bass
they need a bass player, and then
so,
switched over. You got the gig.
They still came out with some great stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
But when you listen to Band of Gypsies, Billy Cox and Buddy Miles was crazy.
And I've always loved Band of Gypsies for years.
God,
I mean, I've always
so
been
good.
head over heels in love with Hendrix and
So
that
good.
album, and that version is phenomenal. So
And I guess you gotta kind of de facto give Ringo and Paul. There really wasn't a lead guitar player in there because Paul played a lot of the leads on.
I never knew that when I was younger, but I heard that when I was later.
Yeah.
Like, Paul actually played a lot of the solos. So.
Yeah. I mean, but Ringo had his own thing we've discussed in another episode. I mean, some of the way that they played was somewhat symphonic, so it's not really kind of how you would think about a groove with a rhythm section.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, one of my favorites, the local band, Kicks.
Kicks. Yeah.
What a great, just the rhythm.
Well, we've seen them a million times.
Seen them a million times, but the way, Brian and Ronnie just the way they played off of each other, and then you've got Jimmy back there on drums is just so solid, and then the way the guitars interacted together was just
and Donnie Purnell on bass, hold down the bass.
Phenomenal stuff.
And it was neat with that. It wasn't so much that it was like two super shredders. It was just good in your face rock and roll, but the way they interweave the parts on those guitars
interweaved together,
and it really created that rhythmic thing that we're talking about in this episode. The whole the rhythm section, and allowed the
when you get two guitars too, you gotta find your spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't want everybody just hacking it out to 11 all the time. You got to find your spot, pick your spaces, and
like Aerosmith.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Aerosmith.
Throw them in there too, of course.
And what about Stewart Copeland and Sting?
The Police.
I mean, that's a great rhythm section. Also, the most combative rhythm.
Yeah, right. If they didn't get a fist fight at the end of the show, I mean, I mean, I've seen the clips. I guess we all have where they're cussing each other out at the end of performances and getting almost into near fist fights.
Oh, and they love each other.
But they love each other. That's a beautiful
But
thing,
if you listen to Roxanne, just that song, they played that together and they locked all the way in.
Yeah,
it's crazy good.
Yeah.
Well, what about the Eagles?
Yeah, Eagles.
Incredible.
No argument for me. Yeah, I love the Eagles, man. Definitely.
Great rhythm section.
Well, I would tell you this is a bit of a right turn, and I don't know the drummer's name, and it's shameful on my part, but Parliament Funkadelic with Bootsy on bass.
Bootsy,
with the Mothership. That is probably some of the nastiest
groove.
Yeah, that pocket is so deep. You're going to pull out 10 pounds of lint and $5 you even get to the bottom of the pocket.
For you guitar
Bootsy don't play around, man.
Oh my
If
God!
Bootsy's laying down a groove,
It
you're
is
going to know it.
when you listen to Hit It and Quit It, it's like
he's just phenomenal.
And it's like there's just like. And they're probably out of their mind, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but I mean like it's just so nasty.
Well, it's I like some of the old bands, Mitch Ryder and Detroit.
Right? Those have cool
great
grooves and beats,
grooves,
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but nobody beats John Stamos with the Beach Boys. That's. I'm sorry, I'm just being kind of ridiculous.
Oh man, that's what the show's all about.
Yeah,
right.
But,
Have a little bit of fun.
No, I'm actually not tired.
But again, all jokes aside here, and they're not the most complicated band we've talked about before, and they were really what got me into rock and roll. One of them, the Stones.
Yeah,
definitely, like you were saying, Richard. You've got Bill Wyman. Not the fanciest bass player, but man, he's locking in. You got Charlie Watts on the drums. Keith laid down a rock and roll groove,
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
And Dave Garibaldi and whoever the bass player is in Tower of Power.
Tower of Power, oh yeah. And then we get into that whole world like funk fusion.
That rhythm section's dumb.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. That's some serious stuff right there.
David Gia, if you're watching this.
David.
Yeah.
He
was in the other day.
Yeah, he's friends with Dave.
Yeah, he took lessons. I think he said he took lessons from him.
And he was actually roommates or in a band with Steve Vai too.
Yeah.
So
but no doubt, Tower Power is just crazy, crazy good stuff. It's like wow, it's
dumb.
Yeah,
I got to see them. They played outside New Year's Eve.
Wow.
Up in Pittsburgh, downtown Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Yeah, but they were playing nothing but hot tunes.
The hot tunes was de-icing everybody.
It's cold. They must have had heaters on stage. Yeah, unbelievable.
No, that's right.
Yeah, unbelievable. Because it was quite chilly.
Yeah.
But,
and the bass player, Francis Rocco Prestia, laying down those killer bass
that's
lines
right.
on a lot of
That's
those.
that's the thing with
great
the rhythm
grooves,
section.
man.
You want to move air, you got to have a good rhythm section. If you don't, the whole bottom falls out.
The whole band, just kind of clunks it down.
Yeah. You don't have that, you're a solo act.
Well,
you're Tiny Tim, right?
and I don't know the names of the players, but the drummer just passed away recently, and they were a band. It wasn't just the three brothers, but the band that was the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
That drummer and bass player were a machine too.
Okay.
And I mean, they recorded all to the point where the Staying Alive drum beat. That drummer had to go back to Scotland for his mom's funeral. They just took a one measure of a loop of a tape from another song and looped it and made Staying Alive off of that drum beat. And he comes back and the song's already done. But my point is that those guys were unreal playing all that stuff. That's pre-drum machine.
Right.
So that bass player,
different ballgame nowadays with all the drum machines. And
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And that's just that. And I got to see that live, and I'll never forget that. And that if you listen to those songs, the drummer and the bass player on that with that band were not studio guys. They were those guys, and they toured with them. So
cool.
I can't believe I don't remember their names. That's pretty terrible.
That was your first concert.
It was my very first, September 26, 1979. And it was a Wednesday night.
Wednesday night.
1979.
And the Who, John Entwistle, along with Keith Moon together. I know we've talked about them in other episodes, but rhythm section, and then Townsend throwing in some rhythm guitar on top of it. And then
I think John Entwistle was probably the only bass player that could deal with Keith Moon. I mean, I'm being serious.
No, I think you're right.
Like they made each
Great
other.
comment. Yeah.
You know?
Thunder and lightning.
And on the opposite end of that spectrum,
Yeah.
Adam Clayton and Larry Mullen Jr. Not a huge U2 fan. They've had some great songs, but they literally learned how to play their instruments as a band.
Yeah.
So those two dudes are a collective unit for sure.
Yeah, I think I remember The Edge saying one time, true story, in an old guitar magazine, it's like, well, when we first put U2 to bed, we could barely even play our instruments. I think that was his actual
And not
quote.
a whole lot's changed.
But I mean, I give him credit. They put together songs that have
Amazing
people
band.
love. I mean, there's no question. So I have mad respect for him that way. But yeah, I remember he actually said that because we didn't even really know what we were doing, and but then they turned into what they've done. And you're right, that rhythm section does work.
And Frank Beard and Dustin.
I was going to go there too. I'm a big ZZ Top fan. Love ZZ Top.
Great.
And Frank Beard, you don't hear people throwing his name around all the time, but I love the grooves on, especially a lot of the old 70s.
Really solid. Very
Tres
solid.
Hombres album and Fandango, Nasty Dogs.
Yeah.
There's some great stuff they're locking into rhythmically.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of that.
Well, I guess that wraps up this episode of Rock Talk. Where are you guys playing at this weekend?
I got a double shot. So I'm doing Friday, April 11th, Cactus Jack. We're down at Wiley's Barbecue down in Fluvanna, Virginia.
Ooh, that's
never been there before. So we
Where?
were
Fluvanna?
Fluvanna.
Yeah.
It's out towards Charlottesville, I think, is what I've been told.
Okay,
I've never been there, so it'll be our first time.
Well, hopefully you don't catch the flu.
Yeah, right. Let's hope not. Well, I'll just suck in enough of Virginia's pollen count to get me through that. And then the next Saturday night with Last Call, we do variety, some classic rock, some beach music, some R&B, lots of fun stuff. Southern rock, that's at the good old Fredericksburg Eagles. That's April 12th at 8 o'clock. That'll be my weekend.
Well, as soon as this podcast ends, I'm going to teleport to Richmond.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be playing at JJ's tonight.
Cool.
With my friend David Hunter, who's a wonderful guitar player and singer down there. Mm-hmm. And then tomorrow, the 11th, I'm heading, at the crack of earlier than dawn, going to Nashville, and I'll be at 3rd and Leslie on the 11th, Friday night the 11th, with Billy Sheehan, Joel Ellis, and Trip Johnson. And
that'll be cool.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be intense for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And once again, I won't be doing any of that. I'll be working, doing stuff like that.
I've been working.
Riding motorcycles. I almost got the bike out this weekend. Didn't happen, but
weather should be turning good for. We get a few nice days here and there, but real spring should be kind of hitting us every day.
I'll have to do my my half-hour rides because I can't stand the pollen, and and you ride a
pollen.
motorcycle and start getting dizzy. That's not a good thing.
And disclaimer: if you hear us coughing, it is pollen count. Man.
This podcast sponsored by Musicstore.
Yeah, here we go. They're all proud sponsors here. They've kind of helped out here for this.
So don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like the video, share it, do some comments, and we'll see you next week. Peace.
This has been an episode of Volume 11 Rock Talk Podcast, brought to you by Volume 11 Music.